Mm.
Hey everyone, this is Randy Kim from the Banh Chronicles podcast, and I'm joined here with a really good friend of mine that I have known over, gosh, like the last 15 plus years, if you can believe that. And I want to introduce who Nicole Brewer is. And Nicole is an English language teacher, a travel blogger, author, and freelance writer. She has traveled to over 50 countries and lived abroad in places like South Africa, Germany, South Korea, and presently in Oman for the past 10 years. She has a zest for the expat life and has a goal of inspiring others to travel and live abroad. She is the author of A Guide to Landing an English Teaching Job Abroad and an ABC guide to children's games across the globe. She's also the co-founder of the I Love to Globe Trot travel site with Amanda Renee Evans and also focuses on the community aspects of traveling. And she is also a certified travel advisor with Fora, with features on CNBC, CNN Travel, Forbes, Trip Advisor, and National Geographic Traveler. And she'll continue to inspire as she globetrots. So, Nicole, welcome. It's so great to see you. It gives me a great excuse to have a conversation with you again. And first, how are you holding up in 2025 with less than a few months remaining?
Man, I am well. I'm so happy to be here and to be catching up with you. Wow, 15 plus years. That's crazy. But
Hmm.
yeah, only a few months left of the year 2025. I feel like
Yeah.
it's flown by, but I'm hanging in there. I have my moments. And sometimes it's a roller coaster. I have high highs and sometimes some medium lows. So, I'm going through the motions, but right now it's a good day because I'm talking to you. So I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think what's happened in 2025, especially, me being in the US, there's so much going on. But for you, like it's gotta be very interesting for you to navigate it from where you are at in Oman, like when you have family members in the United States. So how do you like find a way to like navigate what is happening in the US, but from being a foreigner expat perspective? I mean that's got to feel very dystopian.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Sometimes it's just like I tell people all the time, it's like I wish I could just bundle up my friends and family and just like bring you all with me over
Hmm.
here to the movies, even though it's not perfect either, but I enjoy it. But I mean, obviously everybody has their different paths or different walks.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely like always concerned about my friends and family back home. I'm at that point where my little nephews, they're growing up and they're like teenagers now, and like, my sister, my brother-in-law recently passed. So like
Hmm.
I was so grateful that I was able to come home this summer and spend time that time. It was so necessary to spend that time with my family, but just thinking about like her raising two young Black boys in this time, like
Hmm.
I worry about them all the time. Like my one nephew was like, he's taller than me now, and he's like four, well, yeah, he's like going on 15, and I'm just like, how? Like I'm not a small girl. I'm 5'10", and he's like over 6 feet now. So I'm thinking like he's
Wow.
growing into a young man, and yeah, just these times, it's very scary, thinking about like
Hmm.
what they have to deal with on a day to day. So yeah.
Yeah. And, to kind of, go back in time, like we met back in 2009 and we both came to South Korea. And it was a very interesting time for us because that was during the US, or actually, I should say the global recession. And I know from my experience when I was looking back, in 2009, I was not far removed from graduating as an undergrad, and I was trying to get into the journalism field, which was already starting to decline. And I remember getting interviews. Like one example was the Chicago Tribune, like four different times, and like they were filing for bankruptcy at that time, I believe. And and I felt like there was no way for me to navigate in this job market in the US. And somehow, some way, the idea of teaching abroad was very appealing to me. And it was very new to me because I had never traveled alone. I had never traveled and lived overseas at all. And so to come into a country that I have no connection to was pretty wild. I mean, social media was not where it was then as it is now. This was a very different time. No Facebook groups existed quite yet. And I'm very curious about what was going through your mind when you decided to go to South Korea, because I think for me, it was not just only the job recession, but I also felt like I really need to feel like I'm doing something special. And I'm curious, like, what led you to South Korea, but also, did you have like prior traveling and living abroad experiences prior to that? And
It's so interesting because now that we're having this conversation, I never realized that we were actually delved into how we both ended up abroad at the same time.
Mhm,
And it's funny because, like, yeah, now it feels like deja vu because we're looking at what's happening with the economy now and thinking about when I left to go to Korea, same thing. I was actually laid off from I used to work in market research in Chicago before I moved abroad. And when I was laid off, like end of 2008,
mhm,
like yeah, end of the summer. So I think I remember I was had 6 months of unemployment and I was down to that final month and I was like, ooh, I need a job.
mhm,
So I was, applying, never thought in a million years I would have such a hard time finding a job, i.e. the recession that was hitting in late 2008, early to 2009.
mhm,
So when the opportunity came to teach in South Korea, like I had never lived abroad. Like I've traveled
mhm,
a handful of times, to different places. And ironically enough, I want to say the year prior, I had visited a few girlfriends that were teaching in Japan. So in the
mhm,
back of my mind, when I went to visit them, I thought, that's a really cool experience. So I think that kind of planted the seed, like, I might be interested in doing something like that. But I didn't even know that that was going to be a possibility for me moving forward, like a year later after being laid off. So that's really what attracted me to go to South Korea after looking at my girlfriends who taught in Japan. And I was like, maybe I'll do that. But it was a combination
mhm,
of a job, but also I do love to travel, so why not go abroad and have an experience, and I only planned to stay there for 1 or 2 years, and you see what happened. Here we go,
mhm.
50 years later, and I'm still out of the country. A few years in Korea, 3+ years, and now over a decade in Oman, which is crazy. But yeah,
Yeah,
here we are.
it is wild because like I did not realize what, or I think you and I, we honestly did not realize what living in Korea was going to look like for us. I mean, at that time, I wasn't sure how long I was going to stay. I was thinking, okay, maybe a year, 2 years. I mean, for me, it was 3 years. I think it was 4 years for you because you still
Mhm.
stayed after I left. And it's kind of wild to me when I look back in that period of time and how it changed the trajectory of my life since then, and as it did for you. And also, like, how do you think that that experience had tapped into something that's very deep about your love of traveling? What is it about that really um, catapulted you to make that as part of your identity and experience in a way?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, like, honestly, when I first decided to go abroad, similar to you, I only thought I would stay 1 or 2 years. I never in a million years thought I would be living abroad for 15+ years, So,
Mhm,
yeah, but I just realized just how much joy, I got out of having the opportunity to travel and to share my experiences. I honestly didn't start blogging and writing about travel until closer to the end of my time, just before I leave in South Korea. But the first few years there, I was just grateful to have the opportunity to travel around Asia and, have those experiences. But then I realized I was like, this is really a passion of mine. Like, reason I part of, a big reason why I never came back to live full time in the States because it's just opened up so many doors for me. I love traveling, I love writing and sharing about my experiences and writing books now and freelancing. Like I never in a million years saw that future for myself. But yeah, it's just like sometimes I tell people getting laid off back in 2008, leaving and going to Korea in 2009 was like one of the best things that ever happened to me. Go figure, right?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
How do you think your life would have changed had that experience not happened? Because this is an experience that I sometimes think about. Like, I think had I gone back, and I think this kind of hits into another level of depth here, but like, had I not gone abroad, had the U.S. global recession not happened, I probably would have been hoping I would have entered into the media market. I would have probably worked a white collar job and lived downtown in Chicago. And I don't know if I would have really had the travel bug at any
Mm,
point. And also, being in Korea, like I grew up in a very predominantly white community in the suburbs. And so I was not around a lot of Asian folks on an intimate level. And being in Korea, yes, it's predominantly Asian, but I'm not Korean. But it was the Asian expats, the Asian American, Asian British, Asian Australian expats like that I felt very connected to. And I think I was able to find in some ways my Asian American identity and being able to understand how less alone I actually feel about it. And also it kind of like in a way gravitated towards me be finding Asian American communities and Asian diaspora communities. And I'm very curious, what do you think that would have changed for you? Like, what was your mindset at that time? Like, thinking like, oh yes, like, when we graduate from college, we will be doing this. I would be living in a fancy townhouse or a condo. Um, what would that look like for you?
It's so funny you say that because like literally that was the trajectory that I was on. Like I literally had, because I graduated a few years before you. So I had already been in Chicago, when I left Michigan to move to Chicago. I had been working there for a few years and worked at a couple of different market research firms before leaving the country. So I actually had a condo when I left Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Again, I literally thought I would only be gone for 1 or 2 years. I packed, like, like my condo. I put some things in storage, but I was renting it out. The person who was renting my condo lost his job. So then that was a whole nother,
Mm,
yeah, that, everybody was struggling at that time. So yeah, I lost my condo, so it's just like, if I hadn't lost my job, I probably would have still been living in my condo in Chicago and definitely not traveling as much as I was because like who has the time, now that I'm a teacher, I get my summers off and I get like a ridiculous amount of holidays. So I've been able to enjoy that time,
mm,
that time freedom. I don't think I would have had that if I had stayed in, corporate 9 to 5 or I can even call it a 9 to 5 because on most days you were working much later than that. So yeah, I highly doubt that I would have been on the same path. Maybe, I don't know, who knows? Maybe I would have
mm.
been married. Now I'm still single, so I was
Yeah,
just like that.
same.
That would have
Same.
maybe get married and divorced. You never. I don't know. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
looking at my friends, my age group right now, where they're at. So I was just like, but my path definitely probably would have been different than what it is now. But not to say that I couldn't have been happy in that path, but I'm grateful to be where I'm at now.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also like one of the things that I think about, I think some of the reservations I had about living abroad for a very long time, like for the long term, I should say, like someone had told me like the challenge for many expats who live abroad for a number of years is this notion of you are still a foreigner in your adopted homeland and you are becoming a foreigner in the place that you once lived in. How do you like reconcile between these two experiences?
Oh, that is such a fabulous question. I think about that a lot.
Mm,
Because like honestly, the notion of like repatriating, going back to the States,
mhm,
that scares me a whole heck of a lot. Like, when that CNBC interview went viral and of course they changed the title, African American woman living abroad, never
mm,
coming back. And of course I got some flack. Like I had a lot of people who were just like, you go, girl. And then of course you're gonna, oh, stay gone. Like it was so interesting to like
mm,
have like in my like first real viral experience and seeing like the feedback. And obviously, I try not to read the comments, but every so often you're just like, what are they saying? So,
mm.
it's just like
Yeah.
seeing some of the things that people were saying. It was quite interesting. But it's like, I think about, I don't know. Like it definitely would have been a different experience for me. But like at this point in my life, I don't see myself moving. Like it's a scary thought, the idea
Hmm.
of trying to start over again. And
Hmm.
that's why I think I'm so like obsessed with like having multiple streams of income because I'm like, you never know what the future holds. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. This ESL life, I don't expect it to happen forever. Like I definitely want to move on to another path. But, thinking about the idea of repatriating and starting over, it's a bit scary. Like I don't necessarily want to think about that right now because that's just not the path that I see for myself. But I am of the mindset you never know what the future holds. And like if
Hmm.
it comes to that, if, anything can happen. I might have to come back and help take care of my mom or be there
Hmm.
for my or any, my niece, anyone. So like I think about these things, like it's a possibility, but I'm trying to set myself
Hmm.
up so if I do have to come back, I'm a survivor. I'll make it work.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm just grateful for this time that I have had. So
Yeah, I'm very curious about what backlash did you receive from your interview? I'm perplexed by that when you mentioned that.
the times we are in, some of these Trumpsters seeing a black woman thriving and living her best life abroad, and
Mm,
oh, you stay
mhm,
gone, So it was definitely some hateration going on online from
mm,
some of the people, and even
mm.
from my girlfriend. They was like, "Girl, don't read the comments because you don't want." I said I had to get back. I had to get back with a few people just because I was feeling spicy. But for the most part, at a point, I was just like, I can't fight it's not that this is not my
No,
fight.
no.
More so, I was grateful to have the opportunity to inspire so many people who were giving me positive praise and literally sending me messages of like, "You're so inspiring." So I was more taken in the positive than the negative. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, I know it's very it amazes me that there are plenty of people in America that have not gone outside of their own backyard and have the audacity to say the things that they say. That's a whole nother topic I could probably spend another 2 hours in, but I won't do that to you or for myself. But like I think when you were just like talking about um, you know, the challenges of what you see abroad with your own family and your own communities, like there are weddings, there's birthdays, there's funerals that you may have to miss. How do you navigate through the occasional homesickness that happens along with having FOMO?
Oh my goodness, that is like the $1 million question. I wish I can bottle it up and like,
Mhm.
have the perfect answer because it's definitely, I tell people all the time, like this life is not for everybody. It's not easy at all. Like I was saying before, my brother-in-law passed and it was
Mhm.
just like weeks before I came back home. So I was grateful that I was actually even able to come home and be able to mourn with because I had known him since I was a teenager. You know what I mean? Like my sister, they had a 30 plus year like love affair. So it was just
Wow.
like of course she is still grieving. And it was like, oh my God, like that was like the one time that I was able
Hmm.
to there at a monumentous, occasion like that because like you said, I missed so many weddings and unfortunately COVID-19, I was stuck in
Hmm.
Oman. Like, I literally didn't leave the country because if I left, I wouldn't have got back in for a whole year. They closed their borders. So like I was stuck here and it was like the most difficult time because I lost several family members and friends, not just back home, but around the world, South Africa, like everywhere. And it was like, I'm stuck here. Like it was almost debilitating at a point, trying to keep my mental health together, thinking, worrying about my family and my mom, she has COPD and like, oh,
Hmm.
protect her at all costs. So it's definitely not without its challenges. Like being abroad, everyone thinks it's luxurious, and I'm traveling the world and I'm doing all these things, but I'm like, it gets difficult. Like I absolutely get FOMO thinking about some of the events and the moments that I missed being abroad. But like I said,
Hmm.
you take the good and the bad, it's just like
Yeah.
I've had so many great experiences as well being abroad, but I'm just always grateful that I'm able to at least see my family once a year. Other than, like I said, 2020. That was the one time I couldn't come home. So,
Hmm.
whew, it's tough. It was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is because like when I came back home in 2012 after Korea, being 3 years in Korea, like my mom had a stroke like right off the bat and it changed a lot of things for me and also changed my priorities too about traveling abroad, let alone even living abroad. And my grandma was dying of dementia and she lived in Alabama, lived in Chicago, so I also had to coordinate that time. So like like I always wonder, like, yeah, had my mom not had her stroke, I probably would have continued living abroad elsewhere. I think that at that time, like, man, the travel bug was so heavy on me. Like, I felt very independent. I became more self-assured as I traveled, and I think I had spent like my entire 30s. I came back to the States like before I was 30 years old. And I had spent practically most of that decade not being able to travel abroad or travel outside of North America, period. And I was like, gosh, I cannot believe I had gone this long. Um, because I've had to deal with job losses. On top of it, I had to, I lived in my own place, car repairs and everything that kind of zapped a lot. And also, like, let alone the PTO time was not enough. I had to juggle that with other priorities too, with family and that was so difficult. And I was always envious of my friends that were able to do it because I was like, that was my life for those 3 years, and I need to have it again. And
Mhm.
I think that is also to say that that in the times that we're living in, I do think about, one day, and as much as I hate to say it, that when, I no longer have to take care of my parents, the idea of me coming back to my family homeland has always been intriguing to me. It's like, gosh, this could be a better, different life. What a way to, kind of reconnect and reclaim. Um, Also, like, very interested because, I look at, Black entertainers, artists, creatives, leaders like James Baldwin, Josephine Baker, Tina Turner, Diana Ross. Those folks have left the US and have never turned back. And part of it, a lot of it has to do with the racism and segregation and the trauma that they went through. Do you feel in a way connected to a lot of uh past and current Black creatives who have up and left and not turned back?
I literally just got goosebumps when you asked me that question because, like, that literally, I was interviewed last year about that particular. Like, I have James Baldwin shirt. I wish I was wearing it now. Just like I love James Baldwin and obviously Joseph Maker. Like, I do feel a kindred like connection to these creatives who decided to live outside of the states. Like right now, thinking about like the economy and the job market and like the 300,000 plus Black women who have been
Hmm.
left the workforce, as they wanted to say in that article. No, they were laid off.
Oh,
A lot of
they're
them
forced
didn't,
out.
I don't, so it's just like, we're in that movement where a lot of sisters and brothers are like, it's time to go because,
Mhm.
like there's nothing here for me right now as far as
Mhm.
opportunities is concerned. So I definitely feel that I didn't plan this move. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't like a forced migration, but it definitely was like a migration. Ironic enough, that was a topic in my class today with my students about human migration. But anyway, it was a migration
Mhm.
that happened voluntarily. I decided to leave, but at the same token, it was because there wasn't an opportunity for me in that moment. So it's like I literally have a Josephine Baker like photo here, and I have a
Oh
James
wow.
Baldwin t-shirt I wear when I like to go writing. So yeah, I definitely do feel a connection to them. It's so interesting you ask that question because I feel that like in my spirit, you know.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like very important to see what is happening with this kind of migration with a lot of US expats, especially among, Black and other people of color who are feeling very hopeless and very angry and sick and tired of what is happening and how this country is treating folks who are not white and who are not male, who are not straight. And I think that really kind of goes to show you like where it's been heading towards. And I wonder like I wonder about like this group that you and Renee co-created, and shout out to Renee Evans, for your partner and someone who I also knew back in the Korea days. Like, you created this expat community group, and it also in a way amplifies and highlights and prioritizes the Black woman experience for travelers and also for other people of color as well, and people who are curious about traveling, what goes into it. What was the genesis in creating that community on Facebook, and what has it turned into since, and what has the conversations been like, with community members?
That's a very good question. It's funny because like when Renee and I co-founded I Love the Globe Trot, the travel community. It was at the time that we both were getting ready to depart Korea. Like, we had met through, there was other like Facebook groups like Brothers and Sisters in South Korea. And so like that was a place that we would, have meetups and meet up with other like, African Americans in that region. But when we decided to create our community, she was getting ready to move to Australia, where she still is, and I
Hmm.
was moving to Oman, where I still am. So it was just like we knew we were going on separate journeys, but we were still abroad and we still love to travel. So like the whole point was to have our own community where we can share our experiences as well as like other expats and not even just necessarily expats. Like there's a lot of Americans in the community who like you have lived abroad or love
Hmm.
to just love to travel. So we just wanted to have like an all-inclusive travel community for our friends, and it grew, over 10,000 members, since then. So it's
Hmm.
obviously
Hmm.
we have people from all over the world. And we just all share our experiences about traveling. And, we've had meetups, we've had group trips, like Renee hosted a trip in India, and, you
Wow.
know, uh, we had so we had several, Iceland, we had a meetup. So
Wow.
right now, we haven't really been hosting group trips like we used to, but like you said before, I'm a certified travel agent, so I do help plan other people's trips for them. So yeah, but we just wanted to have an all-inclusive travel community where we inspire other people, where we share our experiences living abroad, and yeah, been featured in different publications, and it's just been great. Like that's like, I still blog on I Love the Globe Trot to
Hmm.
this day about travels and what have you. And Renee, she's doing her thing in Australia. She's working at Ed Tech now. And
Hmm.
so travel is just like in our blood.
Yeah, and I always feel like I live vicariously through that too with you and Renee and also with other folks because I was like, man. And I remembered I went back to Korea at the end of 2022 after I finished grad school, and it was like right when lockdown had finally ended. And I was supposed to go to Korea like in 2020, but the world stopped. And I was like, my gosh, it felt wild to go back to a place that really changed my life and really like reconnecting with just not just with my former students, with, old friends, but also like just the community itself and feeling like I'm in this time warp, of what I was like back then, just like really thinking about all these years that have happened and what I was then to what I was now. Um, I wonder, I don't think you've been back to South Korea.
I haven't, but
That's
I've been wanting to actually.
yeah.
It's 2020 was the year that I thought about trying to go back to and then COVID.
Mm,
I
mm,
remember that was when the Olympics, right? The plan was to go
mm,
to Japan and then hop over to Korea.
mm, mm.
And I just haven't been back since. But I really do want to go back. And I have friends who are like back there too. I'm just like,
Wow.
maybe I should. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like for me since then, I have been wanting to travel ever since. Like I went back to Vietnam and Cambodia. The northern and central part of Vietnam were the first time, and I'd done it alone. And Cambodia was my first. And there was so much energy coming out of that trip. I came back from from a very deep depression, and right before my brother had passed, and so I felt like when I look back on it, I think it really did a lot for me in terms of understanding my identity, understanding the trauma that my family and then what I had went through, and I realized how much I really enjoy not just traveling abroad, but also even within the States to see friends because I feel like a lot of my friends are outside of Chicago. And I feel like everywhere I go, I'm always with a friend, but I also find it as like my level of self-care. Like when there's weirdly enough, I don't know if you feel that way, but like I know I get comforted in a weird way, like when I go to visit other airports. Not O'Hare, definitely not O'Hare, and definitely not LAX. But there's this weird, calming, relaxing feeling when you're at an airport sometimes, especially international, and you're like, wow, this is really wild. And you're just kind of like in this, wow, this is something that my ancestors never have dreamt of. And this is something that I never thought was possible at the age of 25. And I'm 42. And God, I mean, I don't know what I mean to say by all of this, but like I know my next place that I'm looking to travel to is Colombia, my first time in South America at the end of this year. So, like when you think of traveling abroad, like what goes through your mind when you go to the airport and when you're in an airplane, for like 14 hours and like trust me, it sounds kind of fun, but I can't sleep on airplanes at all, no matter how hard I try. But I'm curious, like, what goes through your mind when you're preparing a travel, and like,
Yeah.
what does it take you? What sparks the curiosity for you to travel to places that you have no connection to, or maybe have some adjacent connection to?
That is such a good question. I never really thought about it like that, but I do. I get so like honestly, we named the blog and the site I love the Globe Trot because we really literally
Hmm.
love trying around the globe, right? Love traveling. So it's just like I know for me, living in Oman and like traveling, throughout the Middle East and Africa and different places, like every time I get ready to go, and I'm such a nerd because like every time I go to the airport, like I gotta check in on Facebook and let people know, I'm on my way. I think I
Yes.
think I think it'd be different if I was in the States. I don't think everybody needs to know where I'm going. But I was like, everybody don't need to know I'm out of my home. But over here, I don't worry. I don't worry about it. But no, seriously, like I get so excited, like check in on social media. And then when I get to the airport, I'm taking a photo, I'm at the lounge. Like I just
Hmm.
love documenting.
Yeah.
Like you said, the airport really is like one of my happy places. Like I'm like back in my second home, like even though I live in Oman, I'm like, I'm back at the airport, you guys. I'm heading here, heading there. So it's just like there is this just like little giddiness, like this thrill of like a kid, like the night before like a big
Hmm.
trip, you're just like you can barely sleep sometimes, right? You like tossing and
Yes.
turning like I think it's like Christmas morning when I when I'm on my way to the airport, like
Hmm.
yay, next destination. So I don't know what that is. Like I really do have this like little like thing in my
Hmm.
spirit. I'm just next trip. Like I
Hmm.
am so excited before I even get to the destination, just like the planning of it, and then just like the countdown. And then when you get there, and it's just like finally, new destination, new foods
Hmm.
to try,
Hmm.
new people to meet. Like I love solo travel because
Hmm.
I always
Same.
feel like when I go places with people, I'm in my bubble, right? I'm with my friends, I'm with my people, right? But when I go places solo, I'm always meeting new interesting people because like
Hmm.
we're just gonna have a problem talking to people, right? So it's just like so yeah, I think that's just something that's in me. Like I'm just always so excited about like those new cultural exchanges and immersing myself into a new place. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I know like it's a privilege in many ways because like to travel, and also me being a tall 6 foot guy, that also factors into it because like there are folks that would tell me like I can never travel alone. I could never have enough vacation time or the funds to do it. And it's something that I had to experience like in my 30s where it was very hard for me to just travel abroad. And it made me appreciate what I had back then and to not take that for granted. What are the conversations that you've had with people who are hoping to travel but just feel like I don't know what to do? Because we think of travel as a very privileged white people kind of thing. Um, but I think it's very important, and why I feel like what you're doing is very important is because it gives us hope. It gives this pathway for folks, especially of marginalized identities, to really think about it, but also like what it really can create, to step outside of your own backyard, what it really does. And I think that there's something that's powerful. But what conversations have you had with folks back home that are trying to ponder the idea of traveling?
That is such a good question, especially now in these times.
Mhm.
Like you were saying, some people who are just like looking to leave the country for the first time or repatriating, going back outside, just like exiting again. And it's so interesting because I like one of my mottos is like home isn't going anywhere, right? Like
Mhm.
like if you're interested in going, we are free. We have free will. We can go where we want. We're fortunate. I always like to talk about passport privilege. Like I
Mhm.
know it's a privilege to be able to have this little blue passport, to have an American
Mhm.
passport, to be able to go to so many countries freely. Obviously you have to get a visa for places, but still to even have the option. Like now I just
Mhm.
read some countries are revoking like visas for certain travelers. So it's just like it is a privilege. So I'm like use it. Like I like
Mhm.
to tell people, I was like, I literally feel like I have more privilege. I have a more American privilege as an
Mhm.
expat than I did as a Black woman living in the States. Like that's just my
Mhm.
personal feeling, like being an expat as well as traveling. Just like people when they hear that American accent, oh, USA, like, oh, interest, just obviously now. And everybody's not excited
Mhm.
to think when they think about USA. It's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about the current
Mhm.
president. But I remember in the past, there's oh Obama, like they were so excited, just like you're from the States, you're American. So it's just I like to tell people that you only have one life to live. And
Mhm,
I think people need to step out of fear in their comfort zone and just
mhm.
go for it. My motto is like I'm a black girl from the east side of Detroit. Like, I grew up in some difficult times. So it's like if I can survive the east side of Detroit and the south side of Chicago where I used to live, I can survive in most places. That's literally my motto.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was also, yeah, I think I was also like, I'm kind of having like a brain fart here, but like, I, um, I think about what traveling has done for me personally. Like, there are things that I would not do back home. Like, I feel like I'm more guarded and more careful. And when I went to Vietnam and Cambodia more recently, like, I was very comfortable just walking into their traffic. And all I will say is just YouTube, Southeast Asia, walking the streets in Southeast Asia. And I felt very, very comfortable. And to the point where I was recording myself doing it. I was getting a little cocky to the point where I was actually recording on the back of a motorbike in Cambodia under like, my friend's partner and just recording as I'm on the back of a motorbike, and um, you know, like climbing up like 500 steps at a tempo, which for the life of me, I don't understand why my ancestors have to like create these tempos because like look, I mean the idea of getting closer to divinity or whatever, it's like look, I think I would rather stay in gravity at this point. But like there are things that I would do that I would never consider doing back home. Like do you find yourself experiencing things like, wow, I would never have thought in a million years that I would have done this, and I feel like I'm more brave to do this now.
Absolutely. It's so funny you say that 'cause my mom, she teases me all the time, just like, girl, you should get all this courage from to do this. And you went on a hot air balloon in Turkey
Wow.
and you did this and like things that I just never even thought about
Mhm.
doing when I was living back home in the States. But it's just like I do feel like you get this sense of like, obviously you still gotta have your wits about you. Like I'm not gonna do anything too crazy, but
Hmm.
do feel that you have a higher level of like courage.
Yeah.
You are willing to travel to a country by yourself, or you're willing to live in the Middle East, or live here and live there. It's just like you just I can do this. You know what I mean? Like that. That's why I like to tell people to like to go for it and just give it a try because you'll be pleasantly surprised of like the level of confidence you will gain in yourself through travels.
Hmm.
Like yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And so when you decide to make Oman your adopted home, I should say. What was appealing about Oman? What did you know about Oman then? And what do you now know about it living there for the past 10 years? Because I know that there's so many folks that have not been to Oman or let alone even heard of Oman. I'm very curious about what drew you to it and what can you share about the people, your interactions, and what has been like, as a Black woman, as an
Mhm.
expat navigating through a place like Oman.
It's been incredible. Like honestly, I tell people all this. Like I'm just so grateful that I landed. Like I went from good to good. Like, it doesn't always happen that way to like live in South Korea and had a blast and still
Hmm.
be friends with people that I met from my days in Korea to like being in Oman for like over a decade now. I never in a million years, I didn't even know. I'm going to be frank. I didn't even know where Oman was prior
Hmm.
to learning about the job opportunity here because it just wasn't even on my radar. When I started researching, looking up jobs in the Middle East, I was looking at Dubai and,
Hmm.
obviously Doha and, different places
Hmm.
that I knew of. I didn't even know Oman. And so like when I first saw a post, I was just like, let me Google it and let me start researching. I was like, oh, country is beautiful. Like, my eyes were open to the to the possibility of living here literally by seeing the job posting because prior to that, it just wasn't on my radar. It's only 5 million people here. It's a tiny
Hmm.
little country. Like literally the population of Oman is like population of Chicago. Like when I think about that, I was like the whole country of Oman is
Hmm.
literally the people could fit in Chicago. So like that just goes to show like it's a small little country, but it's so beautiful and it's so
Hmm.
peaceful. People are just they're good people. Like honestly, my students are sweethearts. Obviously students are going to be students around the world. You taught in Korea, so you know how that is. But for the most part, like they're just good people. So I'm just so grateful that, God saw it fit for me to land here because I never in a million years thought for myself,
Hmm.
so yeah, I think that's why it's funny because that question that you asked earlier about like the different paths, I really think about like I never saw this path for myself. Like
Hmm.
literally, I'm in a tiny little one of the safest countries in the world. Like it literally
Hmm.
is. You know what I mean? And it's just like, who knew? Like I had never saw this for myself, but I'm just so eternally grateful that I am here. Just like and I think one of the things that I love about being an expat here, and now that my story has like reached hundreds of thousands of people on
Wow.
social media, right? Because of that CNBC interview, like it really opened up so many people's eyes to this little country. But just to see like, wow, it's actually quite safe there. Like when they saw my story, people had this misconception about like
Hmm.
the GC. And I'm just like, I mean, obviously there are wars, there are things happening. It's not perfect, but you know, this place has been great for me. And so I'm just like, I'm grateful, just so grateful. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome that you've been able to document that journey in Oman and also being able to share insight because I think that's what we also really need to have. It's like, especially to go beyond just the typical tourist of, I mean, like, look, I have nothing against people going to Cancun or any like the Bahamas for self-care. I think that's wonderful. But I also feel like we need to kind of go beyond and not look at it as just like as an opportunity to just travel and eat the best food and which is part of it, but like thinking about like what's happening and also thinking about what can we learn from the folks that we interact with and how do we become very good guests uh, and 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 really being able to not act like kings and queens out in the streets, where I'm just gonna call it out, you know it, but like where I have seen white British expats act like they are kings and queens in the streets of Thailand or in my family homeland, which I have a lot of things to say about that. And and with the colonial mentality that comes in often. And I'm also like thinking to myself, like, what can this opportunity look like? And I think what you pointed out is very important. Is like just like finding ways to humble yourself and to like really be engaged and like really listen and also see where you could be of support and how do you help amplify the stories of the people there that, you know, we live in a world of harmful narratives that have happened that have attacked so many communities. And I think that's really important to name that. And do you have a favorite country or favorite countries that you love to visit?
That's so tough.
It is a tough one because you've been to all
Uh,
50 plus. So, and I know I know it's adding up. I know it's adding up for you.
It is. It's so funny you say that because, like, literally, I don't do a lot of repeat countries, but South
Same.
Africa holds a special place in my heart. Like that's the one country
Ooh,
I've been to like 3 times. Most
wow.
places I'm just like, I'm gonna go somewhere new, but I'm like, oh, South Africa. The
Mhm.
opportunity presents itself to go back to South Africa. I'm going. Like I just love it there.
Wow,
Just
wow.
so beautiful, and I just felt at home there. And I've been to Bali and Thailand. Honestly, I love
Hmm.
Thailand. Thai food. Like I will go to
Hmm.
Thailand just
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So it's just like, but obviously it's just so beautiful and just so peaceful. And I've been to Bali. So there's a couple faves, as far as just like the joy that they bring and just like the relaxation. Like I know when I went to Bali in my winter break in January
Hmm.
and just like being able to like, have a spiritual journey with like a Buddhist there amongst so like it was just like it was a healing trip for me and it was just like I was saying in a funk and like he told me he was just like don't worry things are looking up things are looking
Hmm.
up and then it was just like literally after Bali 2 months later CNBC happened and then this happened and I was just like
Wow.
he really so no like it was so beautiful like I just remember like that trip just really touched me and like initially
Mm.
ironically enough, I was decided between Bali and if you remember Vietnam, I was looking at, and I still do want to go to Vietnam, but I was
Oh
like
yeah.
debating the two, but I was just drawn to go back to Bali. And when I had that experience, I said, okay, this is why it was meant for me to go back to have this experience. Like I realized that.
Hmm.
But yeah, so those are definitely some places that I just love. I love Australia too. Like I've
I
only
do
been once.
too.
But I really want to go back, like maybe we can go visit Renee. That would be
Yeah,
nice. You should
there's
feel like,
some folks. Some folks that I know in Australia. Gabe, if you remember me, I'm still
that's
here.
Harbor Brigade. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, yeah, and I know Bali's a place that that was on my list too before I decided on Colombia. And I'm like, Colombia, a couple of people put me into that radar, and I was like, yeah, I want to visit like Medellin, Cartagena, and Bogota, those places that I'm excited about. Um, my brother, my surviving brother, like he and his wife do love to travel. Like the last couple of years, they've been traveling, and my brother back in the day was never entertained by the idea of traveling abroad. And then ever since his wife had got him into it, like he's been to Italy, he's been to the Philippines, where his wife lived in before, um, Peru, Sweden to see Taylor Swift. They're Swifties, um, and some of those places, and I'm like, you know. I think that there's something that's very powerful. And they also did a trip around Europe, and actually, my brother proposed to his wife in France. And so I think it's something that never leaves you. It's traveling never leaves you. I think this is something that I always tell people. Like, once you do one country, things start to roll up and be like, you know what? And like the idea of mileage points should have done it a long
Yeah.
time ago, but I've definitely clicked out to my Alaska Airlines points and and I'm like, wow, this is not as bad as it seems. And I am more fascinated by it because now that I'm in my 40s, like, look, there comes a time in my life where I may not be able to ever do this. And so
Mhm.
I want to be able to see what I can. And I don't know if you ever go on listchallenges.com. This is like an addiction of mine where I would like play this quiz, like what place have you been to? And and do the scores. I would get obsessed with that. And sometimes when it goes to like Europe or like other global places, like I haven't really
Mhm.
been to most of them. Like, gosh, I'm gonna get a really low score on that one. Um, but I think it just motivates me. And I'm also like very curious about what places are you looking to go to next that you have not been to be like, hey, this has got to be on my radar.
You know what's so funny? You're talking about your trip to South America, 50 plus countries, and you know what region I have not been to?
South America, I noticed that.
America. Literally, it's crazy because it's like, think about it, I've been in the Middle East for so long, and then
Hmm.
prior to that, Asia. So I did a lot of travel around Asia. And then
Hmm.
what I love about being in the Middle East is location because I can go to Africa, I can go to Europe. So
Europe.
I've done a lot, I've been like 9 countries in Africa, right? So since I've been living here in the
Wow.
Middle East, that's been a goal of mine was to see more Africa. So I've seen a lot of Africa, I've seen Europe. I have not been to South America, so I was thinking about that. Like maybe next summer when I come home, I need to make that happen while I'm in the North
Mm,
America. I'm just like, I need to head on down the south because being
mm.
on this so long, it just hasn't happened yet. So that's definitely on my list. I'm going to be following your trip. I'm looking forward to seeing.
I'll be like posting on the I Love the Globe Trot, and I know that there's some folks up there that's always like giving wonderful
The
feedback about their
advice,
experiences.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. What
Yeah.
else? Mauritius has been on my list. Like
Mauritius. Okay.
I
Okay.
do still want to see a lot more of Africa.
Mhm.
Mozambique is high on my list.
Cape
That's I've
Verde is a place that I wanted to visit.
heard a lot of good things about
I
that too.
did, and I know it sounds
Mhm.
sounds kind of weird for me to say this, but like there's this one Madonna video because I've been a listener of Madonna, problematic as she can be, but there's that one video that she did from her last album like several years ago, and she actually featured Cape Verde. It's like, God, this place looks gorgeous, and I need to know more about that history too. There is a dark history, unfortunately, which happens on obviously, which is connected to the African experience there, but also like there's a natural beauty that draws me
Yeah,
to places like that. It's like, okay, what is it about these places that are not often talked about, but could be opportunities to engage and to like really just sit there and not have to be inundated with a bunch of like middle-aged tourists, just like sipping on their cocktails. Not that that's a problem, but I don't want to be around just surrounded by that bubble.
right. I understand that completely. And that's the thing, like you said, there's a time and place for everything. Like some trips you do just want to go to a resort and just have cocktails, relax. Because just like that's what
Hmm.
I need. But then obviously other trips I want to get out and I want to explore and go to the different architectural sites and definitely immerse myself in the culture. So, there's definitely different trips depending on the time.
Do you,
For me at least. So
yeah.
yeah.
And earlier we were talking about airports. Do you have a favorite and worst airport?
Ooh. It's so funny because like two of like the airports that I actually travel to the most, like now that coming through Doha to
Mhm.
Qatar Air.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I love that Doha airport.
Doha,
Like when I get there, I'm
yeah.
just like,
Hamad, yeah, the Hamad International, yeah.
yeah, Qatar International. Like, oh my goodness, the lounge is great and the shopping and it's just
Hmm.
like
It's
it's
opulent,
fabulous. I
yeah.
I love
Yeah, I went
it's
to,
opulent, that's what
yeah,
I've been so spoiled living in this region between there and Dubai. Like, it's
yeah.
like I prefer traveling through there. But then it's like, and then I'm going back to Atlanta. In Atlanta, oh my goodness, the busiest airport in the world. Like that place.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm. Yeah,
it's
that
just like
airport is
it's
a
like
workout.
literally it's like when I'm leaving Oman and I stop there and I'm just like, oh, eating good, drinking good. And then when I get back to Atlanta, I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's gonna take me an hour to get my bag. You have to go like to
It's a
walk the
lot of
Marine
walking.
House with the kids. Like it's a lot of work getting this.
It's a
It's just like
workout.
those are the O'Hare's up there too, like for
Oh, here's
bag.
for me is the worst, but it's a devil
Yeah,
that I
but
know. It's
for
a devil that I
but
know
now
well.
because I've been going through Atlanta so much, Atlanta takes the cake for me
Oh,
now
wow.
because every year just like it's always something when I come back to Atlanta.
Yeah, for those that have not
Personally,
been, yeah, for those that have not been to Chicago O'Hare Airport, it was one of the world's busiest airports. It still is to some level, but it's just it's a miserable, drab airport. Like there's not any good restaurants. People are not ever happy there. It's like it's narrow, it's cramped, it's old, it's not even updated, and it just feels like a chore to just have to get through it. And Hamad Airport in Doha, I mean, I did not have the best experience there in terms of like my the encounters I had with customs. That's a whole nother story. But like, but it is a really bougie airport, and
yeah.
I'm just like, wow, this is really something I haven't experienced. Another airport I also like, the Singapore Changi Airport is a really nice one. I like that one a lot. Um, I've always liked Incheon Airport in Seoul, Korea. I always feel like, I mean, you and I have been very familiar with the airport, and I mean, it feels very spacious. It never feels chaotic. It's always very spacious. I feel like I have a Zen moment every time I walk through that airport. Um, Another airport I really did not like was Hanoi's airport because there's no such thing as a line in in customs, and it's like literally just a zoo. And I feel like that airport is not enough to handle the additional millions of travelers that it has. So I think same with Ho Chi Minh City. Like that airport I've been to once and was not crazy about it, but I think that they're making a new airport or about to make open a new airport. And the airport that I want to visit is the new Phnom Penh airport. I heard a lot of great things about that in Cambodia. So I that looks
Okay.
fascinating. So yeah.
Yeah, now that you mentioned yes, Singapore, because that's something I haven't been in like Asia and so like Southeast Asia in so long. So it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about Singapore. Yeah, like that is a good one. It's been
Mhm.
years. I actually want to go back because I feel like there's a lot of change since the last time I've been here over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. And when you look into, I know that's kind of hard to think about the future in a sense, and you have elaborated on it, like
Mhm.
as we are at the age where, people in our lives are aging and getting older. I know that this is something that that is a very hard process for a
Mhm.
lot of expats when they have their parents that are aging and getting sick or relatives, close people in their lives that are getting sick. And also like even with their own health, like, I
Mhm.
mean, I want to name out like, I think about Marcus who passed away earlier this year and he's a friend of ours and and he unfortunately like he lived in Dubai for a number of years and had cancer and died when he finally came home. And, like these things, like life situations do happen. And Is this something that you are thinking about like for the next 5 years? Like, what is it going to look like, for me? Like, because I think the fear of having to come back and restart all over and trying to like reestablish relationships, make new relationships is a very tough thing to do. That's a trade-off for the adventures that, we have.
Mhm. No, it's crazy that you say that because, like, honestly, I was literally just having a conversation earlier, this afternoon when I got home from work with a buddy of mine. He was reaching out to me, a friend of his who was interested in moving abroad to teach. And he was just like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I thought I want her to talk to you." And I had that conversation about like what's next after Oman. Like obviously this isn't my forever home. Like in most
Mhm.
places, like when you're teaching English abroad, like
Right.
there's a time limit on this. You know what I mean? Like honestly. And I was telling him, ideally, if I don't come back to the States, like I do want to be closer to the States. So like looking at Europe or even like one of my girlfriends, she used to want to place in Panama. And
Hmm.
I'm just like, okay, this is why I'm like so big on right now thinking about like my future retirement and saving. Cause I'm
Hmm.
just like you said, when you have the time and the money to just be able to, figure that out if I need to, that's so important to me, thinking about my mom getting older and
Hmm.
she has COPD and like I said, she's I'm so grateful that she's just like, girl, live your life. Don't worry about me. I'll be all right. Like put
Hmm.
me in a retire, like put me in this
Yeah.
community. I don't care. Like
Aw.
as long as I get this, like she's so sweet, you know what I mean? She's just like, and it's just like, of course, my sisters are there in the States. So I don't know what the future holds. Like honestly, I don't, but
Hmm.
I was actually thinking about Marcus, ironically enough, like I literally saw
Hmm.
him in Dubai, because
Hmm.
this time in Dubai right before he got back to the States. Like I was trying to help him, just like, like giving him his advice, like look into this airport because it was really a struggle for him to get back to the States with his
Hmm. Yeah.
and that's it was just like it was having that conversation with him, just
Hmm.
like take care of yourself, take care of your health is so important, and like that stuck with me. Like I
Hmm.
told you earlier, I was just like I have to do better, because like that was one of the things that he told me, and it's just like I was literally looking like how you go through your friends list on Instagram and
Yes.
his I saw his name, so I went to his profile. His last picture on his profile
Was you?
was with me. And so
Yeah.
like that really just like it really touched me. I was just like, oh my God. Like, I was having a moment, like I was literally thinking about that just like just a couple of days ago. I saw that and
Mm.
all of these things are in the back of my mind, like you said, just like thinking about my
Mm.
family and the future. And, obviously I'm trying to plan, but how they say, what is the saying go, you plan and God laughs, like, you don't know what the future holds. So,
Mm.
but at the same token, I have to be prepared because I've been out of the US workforce for so long. Like, it's not like
Mm.
I'm probably gonna not get Social Security unless I came back like tomorrow. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Which is still probably improbable. So like I'm thinking about like this is why that grind mentality of like, okay, I got about 3 or 4 jobs. Like I'm a teacher by day, writer, blog. Like I'm not doing all these things for my health. Like I enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but multiple streams of income because like financially I'm trying to like set myself up for like what's next.
Yeah.
So
And also, I
mm.
think, to protect your own health. And I also remembered, like, not long ago, you had talked about having to unlearn the hustle grind, the grind culture. And I remember you used to call yourself Nikki Hustle. And, like, what has that looked like for you now that you've transitioned out of this mentality of having to, like, really hustle 24/7, trying to make ends meet and trying to make something, like, how have you tried to unlearn that? And what has that been like for you to pivot away from that?
Oh my goodness, that is so, like I had to bite my tongue because I was going to say I was just like the hustle, and I was just like, no, Nicole, no, you don't want to hustle. Like that's literally what you're not trying to do. Like it's been ingrained in me for so many years, like trying to unlearn that.
Hmm.
It's a little bit of a challenge, but I'm at the point now where I'm just like work smarter, not harder. So
Hmm.
that's why right now, like I'm trying to teach myself technology, AI, like different things, because I'm just like there's too many resources out here for me not to be utilizing these things so that I'm not just like burning myself out and working myself into the ground. Like there has to be a better way. So that's literally where I'm at right now. Just trying to be smarter about the opportunities that I'm taking and what's next, outside of teaching. And I'll get there. Like you said, like I know me, like I'm a
Hmm.
Detroiter at heart. Like I'll figure it out. So, but I'm just trying to still have peace of mind at the end of the day and just not stress myself out because it's just not worth it. I have to take care of myself. So,
Yeah, what's next for you with I Love to Globe Trot? Well, what's next for you and Renee for I Love to Globe Trot? And also, what is next for your other projects or collaborations that you've been working on?
That's a really good question. Like, honestly, it's something that I have to circle back with Renee on. Like, I can't really speak on that completely. I know what we want to do, but it's just like making the time for it and figuring out just like timing wise with her being in Australia, me being in Oman, and just like figuring out what's next. I know one of the things we really wanted to do was just like retreats and get back into the group trips thing. So, that's an idea in an ideal world. If I get out of teaching by next year, that's really been the goal of mine the next couple years at least, but hopefully by next year, is to be able to work remotely. And then that way I can have that location independence and that freedom to host and do these trips with Renee. So that really is a goal of mine,
Mhm.
figuring that out. So that's where I'm at right now. Like time will tell, but by the grace, hopefully everything works out the way that I envision. So we'll see.
Yeah. And the last question I also have in mind is as we wrap up, what would you tell yourself at the age where you were ready to live in South Korea? What would you say to that, Nicole?
Oh my goodness, that is good. That's like 15 plus years ago. So my
Yeah.
my late my late 20s, Nicole, versus my mid 40s. Ooh, child. What would I tell myself? Date them all. Go out there, have fun, girl, because like they're when you get older, the hood is rough out here. So definitely date them all. I would tell her to do that. But definitely, honestly, I feel like I wouldn't be where I am now if it weren't for the decisions that I made in the past. So like
Hmm.
I would just tell her to trust her instincts, about certain situations and always go with your gut because your gut is definitely your friend.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, honestly, I would just say keep going, girl, because you're on a fabulous path, and then that's that.
Yeah, and I gotta say thank you so much for, being on my show. It feels so great to connect with you and talk about like one of my favorite things, which is traveling. And it feels great to talk with someone who has been in this game for quite a while and continuing to show us what traveling can really look like and what it can become. And I really appreciate that. I hope that people get to follow your work. I love the Globe Trot. I'm gonna put that in the show notes and also follow Nikki or Nicole on Instagram. And yeah, I gotta say like all the best to you in your journey and thank you so much for sharing a lot of your insights and experiences.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. This is so much fun catching up, and definitely I appreciate the opportunity.